everyone. Welcome. My name is Casey Barnes. I'm the Director of External Engagement for the Wharton MBA Admissions and Financial Aid Office. Can't thank you enough for taking your time wherever you are. I know we have people all over the world. It's 7 p.m. in Philadelphia. So thank you for taking your time, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Feel free to make yourselves at home. We and I are just super excited to have everyone join us. This is our Belonging at Wharton series. This is a series of events that focuses on making sure that not only our prospective students see the importance that we put on people feeling welcome and that they belong at Wharton and see themselves potentially in their applicants, but then also that they can see that they can thrive and prosper because they feel like they belong in our program. We know that there's research and data behind feeling a sense that you matter and that you feel seen and heard, and we know the importance of that. So we're really trying to focus on the groups specifically that we want to give the ability to feel seen and heard. And I think it's always important when people can see themselves in a possible scenario like going to business school. It gives you a better opportunity to really understand the program. So we're going to get started. I have 5 amazing women on with me, 5 young alums, and I'm just so excited because they're absolutely incredible. This series in particular, the Belonging at Wharton Women, is particularly close to my heart. I went to business school 13 years ago to a full-time program and was one of 20 in a program. It was 20% women. I don't know if everyone saw this, but Wharton just announced we hit 52% women. So give everyone a round of applause for that. It is more joyful than I can ever care to admit, and it's really close to my heart, especially because I was, again, 20% women. So it is one of my passions to make sure that women feel heard and seen. And so when I got this opportunity, I jumped physically and jumped emotionally for this. So let's get started. I am going to kick it over to my panelists. They are not spotlighted. Jazz, are you here? Can I ask you to go first?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Jazz. Jazz, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself quickly, the year you graduated, what industry you're in now, and what you majored in at Wharton, and what year?
Sure. So I graduated in the class of 2020, so about a year after graduation now. I am in technology. I work at YouTube. I majored in organizational effectiveness. And was there anything else I missed?
Year you graduated, major, and where you're working now, where you were before.
Oh yes, and before business school, I was working at MTV and branded content.
Awesome. And where are you in the world right now, Jazz?
And I'm in LA now.
Awesome. Okay, so Jazz is in LA. I'm just making sure. Elise, can I kick it over to you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Elise Petrelli. I am Wharton grad class of 2021, so just graduated a few months. This is pretty surreal. A few months ago, this is pretty surreal. I currently work at Google. I'm in my 3rd week here, working in people operations. I'm in New York City, and prior to Wharton, I worked in the CPG industry in brand management and HR, and was an organizational effectiveness major at Wharton.
Awesome. Thanks, Elise. Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name's Liz. I am class of 2019, so graduated 2 years ago. Prior to business school, I worked in banking and private equity, and actually went back to private equity after school, at a firm called KKR today. And I majored in entrepreneurship.
Awesome. And Liz, did you say where you are in the world?
I'm in New York.
You're in New York too. Okay, so we have 2 New York people. I love that. Janina.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be speaking with you all. My name is Janina Sito. I am class of 2017. Prior to Wharton, I was at Goldman Sachs. I was in finance. And then afterwards, I started at Facebook. So I spent 2 years there, and I recently switched to a startup called Panelist. So happy to talk through any transitions. And then also, I was a dual with the Kennedy School. So happy to talk through that experience as well for anyone that's also interested offline. And I'm currently also adding to the New York pile.
So we will also talk about that in cities and all the questions, but I love it. I love that we have a New York contingency. I lived there for 4 years and it'll always be a warm place in my heart. That's a good one. And last but certainly not least, Tracy.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Zoe. I graduated in 2017, which, like Janina, seems like just a minute ago, and now it's 4 years. I am currently in Houston, so I'm from New York. So New York always has a special place in my heart. But I've actually moved around quite a bit since graduating. I have been in Orange County, LA, and most recently now Houston, just for the last month and a half. But prior to Wharton, I was in investment banking in New York. And then post Wharton, I went into real estate private equity. And so I was a real estate and finance major at Wharton.
Wonderful. So as everyone can see, our panelists are unbelievably well-rounded and obviously successful. And so we are so lucky to have their time. So I want to make sure we use every single moment possible. Just so everybody knows on here, what's going to happen is I'll ask our panelists a series of questions for the next 30 minutes, really just hovering around what belongingness means, especially as a woman at Wharton. The last 10 minutes will go to Q&A from the audience. And if everyone could please put that in the chat and publicly so everybody can see it, and I'll try and filter through and bring up the questions that could suit the group best. Let's ask questions specifically, maybe not about applications or anything necessarily like direct applications, but more about our panelists' experience. And then probably the last 5 minutes, we'll do a quick wrap up and thoughts and advice and all the fun stuff. Maybe, talk about Philly restaurants. I don't know. We'll get there. But again, if you could put questions in the chat, but let's get started. The other thing I did want to say is I have two very strong women labs and golden retrievers downstairs. So if you hear them voicing their opinions, I apologize ahead of time. They've been talking a lot recently, but good, strong women. So let's kick this off. And I already see a question for Elizabeth, so I love that. Thank you, Charlotte. Now, ladies, the first question I have is, what is belongingness? But that feels like so up here in the world. It feels like we could go on for hours about it. So instead of just what is belongingness, why was belongingness important to you in your experience at Wharton? And if you could talk about that, and if you want to talk about specific experiences or as a high level, or why you chose Wharton and why you felt like you belonged at Wharton, I would love to hear from it. Not going to cold call, but if anybody feels strongly, just unmute yourselves.
I can jump in. So for me, I targeted, like many of you who are looking for a strong MBA program, I wanted a program that had a strong representation of women, and at the time and still currently women-led in terms of percentage of the class at Wharton. And so I had a former coworker that had gone to Wharton maybe 2 years before me, and she served as a mentor for me as I was going through the process, and was very open about the type of culture that Wharton was like, how I should consider other MBA programs, and just knowing her, having worked with her, and having her help me visit campus and experience it on my own. It was very clear that it was a program that would make me feel like I was welcome. Belongingness means so many different things to so many different people. And I think that is important for you all to think about as you're going through it. There is a very strong social component to Wharton, but there is very much a very work hard, play hard type attitude, which also made me feel like I really belonged. I was able to meet people who had so many different interests, such as travel or anything from wine and whiskey clubs to, thinking about social impact and how we could change the world. And so I think there's literally something for everything at Wharton. And that's why I was able to feel like I belonged. And it was just such a crucial component when I was considering programs throughout the process.
Thanks, Janina. That was wonderful. Anybody else doesn't have a strong one, we can continue to move on. I think this next one is great. And I know this is a hard one, but do you think there is whose responsibility and did you feel a sense of responsibility to cultivate a sense of belongingness within the program? Or was there anyone that you looked towards to really help you find a sense of belongingness there?
I'll take this one off because I was actually surprised by how structured the program was early on to support belongingness, and then how much you can also take it up on your own. So when you first join, there's a guidance counselor of sorts to help you work through your classes. But what I found most supportive was the student life leaders, as well as the cluster leaders, who sit down with you and talk about your interests and point you towards programs and push you to think about things that maybe you didn't think about, or activities that you wouldn't necessarily say yes to right away. And that was a way early on in your first year where you can really develop a sense of community in a big place that at first can seem very scary. And I would say it was that sort of structure at Wharton that actually prompted me to just reach out to people throughout my 2 years and just get to know them. And the thing that's so beautiful about the community and the program is that there is this sense of openness across the 2 sort of years that you're there, but also with the alumni community. And so it felt like the Wharton shared experience was that common bond that made me feel like I belonged. And while somebody may be a year ahead of me, a year below me, 10 years ahead of me, I think the program and the name, and then the structure that the admissions office builds, and the rest of the MBA program builds, I feel like that gives you a wonderful foundation to feel like you belong, and the rest is a little bit up to you. And you can take belonging however you want to, right? You can feel like you belong in the class of 850 people and get to know as many people as you want, or spend time building really strong and intimate relationships with a smaller group of people. So to me, that early structure in the program in the first year was really this wonderful foundation that set me up really well.
Thanks, Liz. Any other thoughts on that? And this actually, there was a question in the chat that I've been noticing, and everyone, awesome questions. I'm noting them, I'm copying and pasting and putting them there. So noted, I'm seeing all the +1. So again, women are amazing. I am biased. One of the questions I saw was someone put in and said, if you thought there was a space or an avenue or something that you didn't feel a sense of belongingness, were you encouraged to start a club or make a difference, or what? And what was that? And what do you think you saw? Maybe it's personal experience with clubs or in academics or recruiting or whatever it is. And I'd love to hear, maybe, and this might be an uncomfortable question, but maybe you didn't feel a sense of belonging, and how did you make a difference, or how did someone make a difference for you?
So I can take this one, and it's a little bit of a slightly different angle, because there was a place that I ended up finding that was already created at Wharton. So go roundabout ways of telling the story, but I came into Wharton thinking that I'd want to go from the sell side in finance to the buy side, but I hadn't necessarily chosen an industry, and because of that, I actually felt, looking back now, a little bit lost in, say, the first quarter of starting Wharton in terms of recruiting and really trying to understand what I wanted out of a career post Wharton. And what I didn't realize was that I had a slight interest out of from family history into real estate, but I didn't realize that could be a full career. And it wasn't until I started talking to classmates, and it wasn't even through necessarily a structured program within Wharton or academics, or looking at the career office and understanding what careers were out there. It was actually talking to other people and finding a group of people that had worked in real estate. And this was just through the many different types of social events that happened during the first quarter. It happened organically, and I felt that that is where I found a sense of belonging first. And then through that opened up me exploring the career path of going into real estate. And then that also opened up a network of just friends in general. And that's where I felt I most belonged.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. Jazz, Elise, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, were there any preconceived notions that you had coming into Wharton of whether it's a sense of belonging as a woman, as someone, you know, maybe it was coming in as, we've had some questions about being an engineer coming in, or coming from an experience of a background that wasn't typical business. And I say typical business because typical business to me is business administration. There are so many things outside of it. I went into business school as a history major. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on if you experience things coming in going, oh, I assume business school is going to be this way, and you were pleasantly surprised, and or, oh, I need to make a change here, I need to make a pivot.
Yeah, I definitely saw myself, I hate this term, but I saw myself as a non-traditional Wharton student. And I, coming from entertainment, I had no examples of what it looked like to get an MBA or what the path was after. So I was going in completely blind. And similar to Janina's point earlier, the mentors who took me under their wing in my company, even outside of my department, who had MBAs, were the ones who showed me that you can have pretty much any kind of background. There's infinite pathways in, infinite pathways out. And so for me, that was really crucial, seeing people who, you know, maybe had artistic backgrounds or creative backgrounds or different kinds of backgrounds before they went to business school. And I think on the stereotype or preconceptions I had going in, I remember meeting my learning team, and it was like a PE person, a banker, like they were just all not me basically. And I just remember thinking, I'm gonna be such a drag on this learning team. I was a history major. They're gonna hate me. They're gonna be like, why is this girl here? And at the end of our core together, all the work we did, they basically voted me like most valuable. Like, you were the most helpful to us because you've managed people before and you have a different perspective on business. And there's just so many things that, ways that I saw the world that my learning team didn't. And I realized that having that different perspective is actually so core to why the learning team works, why Wharton works. If everyone was the same, the program wouldn't be as special as it is. So for me, I'm glad that my learning team showed me that they, even people who had similar industries, I thought they were all typical business people. They all added so much to my life, and I added to them, and we all contributed to that community.
Jazz, I love that story. I also love that you're a history major, because we are a special breed, as you know.
We are.
I love that. That's a wonderful story. I always say that when I'm doing just in general information sessions, is if we only had finance majors and we only had banking, not that there's anything wrong with that, they're fantastic, it would be boring. We need as many perspectives as we possibly can. That's why we're having this conversation. That's why we think it's important that there are more women than men in our incoming class, and why this is such a great achievement so far. Elise, I'd love to hear your perspective too.
Yeah, so I think coming into business school, I had two preconceived notions that were very quickly blown away, and I was just so impressed and felt like I belonged. So one, I'm a first-gen low-income student. I'm the first person in my family to pursue a corporate job. I'm the first person in my family to pursue an MBA. Really was removed from that world, and everything I learned was kind of me fumbling and finding mentors in life. And in coming into business school, I thought that could be very challenging from an imposter syndrome perspective, from a spending perspective, and my relationship with money, and just my overall confidence. And then secondly, I am an introvert. Naturally, profoundly introverted. And I think there's this notion maybe that extroverts thrive in business school. And almost instantly, both preconceived notions were just proven to be completely not off base, but I was so impressed by Wharton. One, I felt so included and so accepted as an introvert. I felt so many people identified as introverts when we got to campus through some of the personality testing we did in our first week during preterm during Management 610, from just speaking with people, from speaking with my leadership fellow and talking to him about his introversion and how he managed it and his career. I think being an introvert at Wharton was really very much embraced. I think I grew a lot as a leader through leveraging my peer relationships and some of the tools there to see how my introversion became a strength, and the activities I was able to partake in certainly always were whatever I personally as an introvert felt interested in. My favorite memories from school are creating small group dinners with friends, or going on our own, or going to the food club small group dinners, or maybe getting coffee one-on-one and trying a lot of different coffee shops in Philadelphia, as a friend and I did in our time there. And then as a low-income student, everyone was just incredibly accepting and inclusive, and there were so many ways to enjoy business school and have fun and make those connections. And I absolutely loved Philly as a city, and felt it was really inclusive and accepting, and just generally was really, really impressed at how inclusive my peers were, given my background.
Those are both amazing stories, and I love them. And I think it leads into the next question, and again, for everybody. But there's, again, preconceived notions about Wharton, and that there's this culture of, and I had it before I worked here and when I was looking to apply, of cutthroat. And another alumni panel I did, that the person said, everyone assumes it's like swimming amongst sharks when it's actually like swimming amongst dolphins. And I love that, and I use it all the time, and I told him I stole it, which I stole it again. I would love to hear what your preconceived notions are, what we talked about, but also what's the culture? What do you think the overall culture of Wharton is? And then what's the culture of women empowering women? Is there something that you felt of women empowering women? Is that something that, does it exist? Does it not? I mean, I think it exists, but I'd love to hear your 5 perspectives.
I'll kick this one off because I was actually a Wharton undergrad, and the perception of Wharton being a cutthroat, finance heavy school, I think has always been there, but it certainly is just a stereotype. I couldn't go into enough stories about how many people come to Wharton with the variety of interests that they have and don't spend their time in finance and still come out being amazingly happy and successful. And I think the school supports those people who do want to do finance. So I just want to make that very clear. For the people who want to do it, it's there. It's a really robust program. But what I was so happy about was the focus on entrepreneurship, the focus on legal studies, the focus on operations, the focus on management. The marketing department at Wharton is one of the top in the country. I think it sometimes doesn't get that visibility, but that stereotype doesn't exist at all. And you start to feel it the moment you step onto campus. Jazz talked about a learning team, right? Your learning team is the sort of group of 6 people who you don't know each other, and you work together and support each other in that first semester. Everything from your classes, with teamwork, with people that you meet in clubs. There's never been for me an element of it's so competitive, it's so sharp elbowed. Everyone is there to pursue something very personal in their development journey, whether it's professional or personal. And so no one is there to sort of be mean to you or be rude to you or not share information if you missed a class, or not give you a heads up if something is going on in a class project. I think that's just a stereotype. And I think, all 5 of us probably have stories about how wonderful classmates have been when we were sick, when we were out for interviews, just that support in that community. That is so important. And I would go further and say that the women that I met at Wharton have been people who I admire, right? I admire while I was there. I admire the things that they accomplished before Wharton, while they were at Wharton, what they're doing, after Wharton. And I think it's that sort of admiration of people with very different backgrounds that I think makes the community so strong. And I'll go with sort of one anecdote about community, which is when I applied to Wharton, there were 2 questions. There was a question about, why Wharton, why MBA? And the second question is, what can you give to the community and what can you take from the community? And I thought that was so emblematic of the experience. No other school had that question. No other school talked about their community. Wharton was the only school that asked about what it is that you think you can give to the community, and also what do you think you can take out of it. And I think that in and of itself is reflective of the experience.
Liz, do you want to work for the admissions office? No? Okay, yeah. I get it. You're doing my job, Liz. I love it.
Casey, I'd love to add on that from the alumni, a little bit further out perspective. And in terms of having a strong group of women, I felt I absolutely got that out of Wharton, and that's more than I could have asked for going in to the experience. And for example, there's a group of women that I still keep in touch with. We started going on one trips while at Wharton in our first year and our second year, and we have continued to do that every single year outside of COVID since. And so that's, 3 trips now since graduating. And most recently, and we talk about everything from career, how to navigate our careers through COVID, especially. And we're coming from all different walks of life. It's not just finance. And being a finance major, I think you can still get a well-rounded experience at Wharton. But we're coming, this group of women, nonprofits, finance, consulting, tech. We have everything. And we still continue to lift each other up to this day. And we see each other every year. Most recently, one of our friends got married. One just had a baby. I've moved around a lot of different places, navigating through that. They have been there thick and thin. So that's more than I could have ever asked for a strong group of females coming out of Wharton.
I can add to that. I feel like we all have countless stories about our experiences at Wharton and those with women specifically. I think to Tracy's point of traveling and being in different parts of the world. For example, one of my best friends from Wharton, I had been living in London for the past year. We were in London during lockdown, and when restrictions lifted, we went for a walk, and we happened to stumble on a coffee shop and ran into a Wharton classmate our year, which was just so bizarre. And then we got in touch with other Wharton alums that were there and just did a hangout in the park, socially distant, but it was just amazing to the extent of, I had established such a friendship with another woman, and then been able to just get a random group of Wharton people together in London, which it just feels like, and this is, just this past year, several years out of graduation. And to go back to the question on belongingness and whose responsibility is that, and to also address the question on, what are we doing based off of our experience from Wharton? I think Wharton gives you that opportunity to just try something new and build something new if it doesn't exist. For example, the startup I'm at didn't have any employee resource groups. And so I was speaking with someone just very during a catch up at some point, and mentioned, hey, we don't have any ERGs. Why don't we just start a women's series? It was during Women's History Month. And now I'm one of the co-founders of the Women's ERG at my company. And I think my experience at Wharton just gave me the confidence to just, if it doesn't exist, just build it yourself. And that was something, it was a trial, and it gives you that experience to do things throughout those 2 years that you may not be able to do outside of that. And so I could go on and on about all the different experiences I've had, but it's definitely something that I carry with me to this day. I've tapped into so many different alumni. When I was looking to relocate abroad, I used our career services. That still is a service for you all out. You can still have appointments. It's really incredible. And so I'm really lucky and fortunate to have had that experience. So.
Janina, I think that was the perfect transition to my next question. And we've talked about alumni, and one of the major assets of a Wharton degree is becoming part of the network. And we always say this, we being Wharton as a whole says, take the call, pay it forward, help those that are coming after you, rely on those who came before you, especially, again, women in business school historically had been a smaller number, not anymore. I'm going to talk about that all as much as I can. I'd love to hear your experiences of what you felt as belonging amongst the alumni network, men or women, and how they've played an impact on A, why you chose Wharton, and B, your experience during and since.
So for me, the alumni piece was huge. I might be underselling it, but I don't think I would have my job if it wasn't for the alumni at Wharton. As I mentioned, since I won't say not traditional, but since I had never worked in tech before, let's put it that way, I had no idea how to navigate getting into, especially big tech. Those were the companies I was targeting. And I would say even my current classmates who were from Google, but also alum at Google, they literally took me under their wing the same way they did when I was applying to Wharton and walked me through the interview process, talked through which teams made sense, helped me navigate getting an internship in LA, which no one had ever done at Google. That was like unheard of at the time. And that was all because of the, Wharton elders who were at Google who really just took an interest in me and invested in me. And then now that I'm here at the company, the amount of just like investment and pour in that people put into me. We have a group chat that we always have going. I have quarterly with like all the VP Wharton people who are just like, how do we keep you happy? How do we keep you here? And that just would not have happened if these were all just random people in this huge company that I probably wouldn't have found any other way. But since you have that, that Wharton 2020 behind your name, all of a sudden, as soon as I started, people were like, let's get coffee. Who do I need to connect you with? How do I help you? And there's just generally, to your question before about competition, I feel like we see the competition as other schools. We're like, let's help Wharton people. If I can't get the job, let me help someone else. So even now in my current team, anytime there's an opening, I'm like, who in Wharton would be good for this? Who can I think of who would be right for this kind of a position? And that level of just scale that the school has and how global we are, people have already mentioned how global this school is. It's something that even if I'm 1 year out, it's transformed what my career could have looked like if I didn't go to Wharton.
That's awesome. What a great tagline, Jess. All right. Other thoughts on alumni?
I'll piggyback off of Jess. So the summer in between my 2 years, I tried a totally different industry. And while I felt like I had the tools from the career services team, I actually really needed help with interviewing. And there's sort of cold emailing and warm emailing. I think the benefit of the Wharton community is you can always feel like your email is warm, right? People will always take that call. And I probably emailed 20 people and 18 responded to me. I was flabbergasted by the response rate, by how eager people were to get on the phone with me and just share their experience, their honest experience. And I think that actually changed my perspective of outreach in general, because I used to be very shy. I used to be, I didn't have a lot of confidence in doing that sort of warm outreach, but through the MBA program, I realized that people in the Wharton community are incredibly receptive. And if anybody reaches out to me today, cold, whatever you want to call it, I take the call. And I think that is just the assumption, right? Because Casey, to your point, it's this thought of paying it forward because somebody helped them and now they're helping the group, that's graduating. And my job is to make sure that that sort of energy continues in the community where you always feel like you can email a Wharton alum and you have their help. I would also say that I work in a very male-centric industry today. I'm the only male in my group, probably one of the most senior female at the firm in my position. And I always feel like if I email a Wharton alum in private equity, male or female, mostly male, people always respond. And it's this amazing feeling because otherwise I feel like I have less access, I have less opportunity, I have less connections, right? The Wharton alumni community has been so helpful in making sure that I have the same edge as my male colleagues who might go golfing together, right? When I don't do that, the community has been incredibly helpful. And as I've graduated, I continue to dig back through the alumni community, even people who I didn't, overlap with at Wharton. I have no hesitation in emailing them and just, asking them for a quick intro call or asking them for coffee.
Thanks, Liz. I'm going to shift over now to academics. I know we have a variety of majors, we have a variety of backgrounds before you came to Wharton, after. I'd love to hear your experiences of if you felt like you belonged in your classrooms, whether that was in a class that was completely outside of your comfort zone. I know economics was outside my comfort zone, and thank God for good professors. Or if it was you felt just like you belonged in a marketing class and you were a marketing major undergrad or whatever it is. I'd love to hear how professors and academics made you feel or didn't like you belonged at Wharton.
I can kick off this question. So while I had a bit of business experience and a bit of business coursework in undergrad, I was 7 years out of undergrad before I came to Wharton. The GMAT and the GRE were really challenging for me. I was really nervous about the quantitative aspect of the classroom, but really excited to challenge myself in that realm. And right away, I knew going into that first day of macroeconomics, it was going to be a stretch for me. I had to really brush off the cobwebs in my brain, and it was going to be a bit of an adjustment back into the classroom. And rather than feel ostracized or deflated or anything of that nature going back into the classroom, if anything, I was amazed at the number of resources that were available to help me succeed, and how truly like the pay it forward culture of Wharton really helped me thrive. So one, in terms of pay it forward, my learning team could not have been more wonderful and helpful. We are still really tight. I'm probably going to see one of my learning team members this weekend in the park. They were there for me if I didn't understand a specific concept in stats. One of my best friends here in New York, he tutored me on a regular basis when I was falling behind in statistics. We had study groups together to make sure we were all succeeding. So I really found like in some of those more challenging classes, people were open to helping each other one-to-one, and I never felt inferior because that was taking me a little bit more to catch up. Secondly, I'd say in terms of resources, there are just so many office hours put on by professors, by TAs. Oftentimes it's the TA sitting and oftentimes they were quite busy, but oftentimes it's the TAs just sitting and chilling and waiting for someone to show up. So it's like private tutoring sometimes. Like there's also tutors that you can hire to help you with your coursework. Like I was just incredibly impressed by how many resources were there to help me feel caught up and help me feel like I belonged. And then in turn, you know, I felt like when I would contribute something in the classroom from my unique backgrounds, people in turn were always really interested in, and that's how I gave back to the community. So it's very much a pay it forward type of environment where everyone lifts one another up. And I'll always be grateful for that.
Thanks, Elise.
I'll speak to one of my favorite professors at Wharton, who Catherine Milkman. Her class, Managerial Decision Making, is an incredible course. She actually recently published a book. If you haven't gotten it, I will just give her a quick promo because she's awesome and speak about, you know, empowering women. Her class, I think, you know, the whole concept of it is understanding how people make decisions. And I think when you think about belonging and having that understanding of why people make the decisions that they do, why they think the way they do, it was really quite an unlock in both a personal and professional standpoint. And she also was just an incredible resource and put me in contact with additional professors. I mean, I hadn't thought about behavioral thinking before in that sense, and it really just sparked an interest of my own that I continue to pursue. And so I think she just was able to connect me with other people, both within the Wharton and Penn community, but also, you know, outside of that. And so I think you can definitely tap into the professors. As Elise mentioned, there are office hours all the time. They are there, they are willing and more than happy to help you. They are a resource. And so definitely take advantage of that when you're there.
That's awesome. We are at 7:41, and unless some of the other ladies have thoughts on academics, I'm going to shift to audience questions. We've got some amazing ones. Everybody go with that? All right. Jazz, this was directed at you, but I think it's a great question across the board because it talks about female leadership in companies and where we're lacking. So Jazz specifically, it says, as a woman of color in tech, I've noticed a lack of not only women in tech, but specifically female leadership in the industry and resources supporting them. How has Wharton prepared you for this environment? And what resources have you found most helpful or unique to Wharton? Did you, I guess, in the past?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So in a way, Wharton kind of prepared me for the tech industries in a lot of ways, because the overall ratio of Wharton is very balanced, but you will find places that men are just more interested, and that's just the reality of it. And so for me, coming from entertainment, I came from teams that were all women. That was what I was used to. And I had to kind of acclimate to working with men, and luckily I had great learning teammates and great classmates. But I think in terms of going into tech, the resources that have been most helpful to me, similar to Gina's point, are our ERGs. So women at Google, women in LAX, specifically in LA, and then just intersectionally, the Black Googler network has been a huge part of my time at Google. I think one of the things I found most helpful is finding those few, unfortunately, but those few women in those positions. And those women, again, when it comes back to people pouring back into you, it just so happens that many of them are Wharton alum. Our CEO is a Wharton alum, so it kind of trickles down. But finding those women and just being super open and honest and coming to them with real questions, and getting really tactical advice. Because I think it's very easy to say, like, oh, can you mentor me? That's not really always what you're looking for. For me, coming in, I said, you know what, I'm coming in fresh out of business school. This is my first job out of business school. What's the next level look like? What does growth look like? What does building a career outside of Mountain View headquarters look like? All of those really tactical questions. And those women within the ERG were super helpful in helping me accomplish that. And I think I started modeling that at Wharton, and now I'm just going to continue that throughout my time in tech.
Thanks, Jazz. Anybody else have thoughts on just finding yourself and seeing yourself in the women in leadership positions in your respective industries or your companies, or how you've allowed yourself to lean into those mentors, or mentors that might not be women? And that's actually a good segue, because I think, Liz, this was something you talked about, but something I really wanted to highlight. Question was, have you experienced finding allyship with, experience finding allyship with male classmates in your Wharton classes, especially in typically male majority fields like finance?
No, so not an issue at all. I would say that as I interviewed for my job out of business school, I actually frankly didn't have a choice, but I relied on my male classmates, and I was pleasantly surprised by how helpful they were. I still call them today. Actually just changed jobs a few days ago, and those are the same people that I call. And so it doesn't matter if you're male or female. I think, you know, to them, you are a friend, a colleague, and a classmate. And that's all that I hope to be seen as. And I would say that on the sort of more senior side of it, I think you just have to be confident. And I know that it gets said a lot, like women get told a lot, they need to be confident, but it's more just confidence in who you want to be, not like who somebody says you want to be or who they think you should be. I've found that, like, if you are comfortable with the things that you want to learn, who you would like to become, I've noticed so much receptivity from, I call them my sponsors. As I think about progressing through the finance industry, if I am just honest, and it may not be what they want to hear sometimes, and maybe it matches exactly what they want to hear. I have found that to be actually much easier as I've left business school, because I've gained a better sense of just confidence with my male classmates, now peers, in the industry.
Thanks, Liz. Tracy, I saw you unmute yourself.
Yep. So I can definitely speak to, I leaned on my male classmates significantly when I was trying to learn the real estate industry and the real estate private equity industry. Because again, I had come from a world of sell side finance, and I was not in real estate. So I was covering financial institutions and insurance companies. So still within finance, but real estate speaks a different language. And I basically called it Real Estate 101, where I would reach out to specific peers. They were in our class. I can think of several of them off the top of my head. And I just reached out and said, can you, I have not even an interview. I had just have a call coming up. And I want to be able to speak to, like, what are the things that I need to, buzzwords, and not just buzzwords, but what are the things that I need to know in order to successfully get through this call. And countless times they taught me what the industry was about, and especially introductions. And then even beyond that, when I received several offers in second year, they were also my real estate coaches, because they understood better, because they had been in the industry prior, what the industry was like, what are the reputations of these companies, what are things to look out for. And then not only that, I still contact them today when I'm thinking about certain things in terms of investing. So I mentioned that I recently moved to Houston. One of my male classmates, who I hadn't spoken to in some time, but we were both in the real estate club together, is here. And I reached out, and we've been grabbing drinks. He's on the other side of the industry where he's in development, but we've been grabbing drinks probably once a week. We're potentially going to work on a deal together in the coming weeks, because they just built a deal, they're selling it, and my company is looking at buying it, and we're both the leads on the other sides of the business. So there are lots of ways that I've leaned on male, and they are true allies. I don't believe they see, they lift up women just as much as women lift up women.
Awesome.
I'll jump in there real quickly, because it's an interesting question as you asked it. I hadn't really thought about it before, in the sense that I feel like we all reach out to our classmates, male or female. But when I do think about it the most is when I'm either thinking back on something I did during meeting, or if I want to ask for something in an upcoming performance review, I do tend to lean on my male classmates and peers and say, hey, what would you have done, or what would you have said, or am I overthinking this? And I think sometimes it's really good to get their perspective, because we all know that, women can tend to overthink or be sensitive at times. And when I get their feedback on, I wouldn't have thought twice, or of course I would have asked, it's just, it's so funny when you see that distinction in how they think about things. So I think it's always great to get different perspectives, not just male or female, but from different voices in the room. And I think that's what Wharton has really allowed me to tap into, those different voices that you wouldn't have initially thought of, because you think of it one way based on your own upbringing and what you've thought about throughout your time. So I love that Wharton has just really opened that up for me.
Thanks, everybody. I have seen this question in the chat several times, and this was going to be my wrap up, but I'm going to push it forward now. What made Wharton special, different than the other potential programs you were thinking of? And why did you end up choosing Wharton over the other business schools? And what was your final decision? And if your final decision was there was no decision, Liz went there undergrad and, I'm assuming, fell in love with it and couldn't go anywhere else, that's okay too. But why? Everybody always talks about, like, there's a warm and fuzzy feeling. What was your warm and fuzzy feeling? Or maybe it wasn't, and that's okay too.
I'll go first, since mine was in fact a warm and fuzzy feeling. I urge you guys, if you have the opportunity, go visit campus. I know COVID is making it very complicated, and I don't know what the protocols are, Casey, but there is something so special about the Penn campus and the Wharton buildings and the energy. And I visited 3 campuses, of which Wharton was one of them. And when I stepped on, I felt like this was a place where the people that I had met were people that I would want to be friends with, and that I would want to go to class with. And then when I looked at the curriculum, it was the things that I wanted to learn about in the 2 years. When I looked at the alumni and where they had matriculated to in terms of, post-Wharton jobs, it was exactly what I wanted to do. So it met all of those requirements. And when I stepped onto other campuses, I didn't quite get the feeling that I maybe would be friends with everybody. And to me, there's this moment where all the classes change. So they sort of change at 9, 10:30, 12, 1:30. And you walk out onto the Penn campus, and it's like fall, and there's leaves, and it's beautiful, and there's this just rush of people. And that's something that she can't replicate. It's something I can't even describe in words, but I watched, you know, all these people walk by and I was like, I just want to be here. And so that was my warm and fuzzy feeling for picking Wharton.
Just so everybody knows before the other ladies answer, we are not doing official on-campus programming because of COVID, but we have visit programs coming up this fall. We have virtual live tours that our admissions fellows are conducting. And if you do come to campus, hopefully vaccinated, you can do a self-guided walking tour. And if you come in the fall, it's particularly gorgeous. It's about 105 right now, but highly recommend Philadelphia in like October or whenever. Okay, ladies, back to you.
I can jump in here. I remember, as I mentioned, since I didn't have many examples of people getting MBAs, I was very much cold emailing students and alum. And I mean, the things I heard, like it hurts my heart because I was very involved as an admissions fellow, but people would tell me like, oh, I don't really have time to talk to applicants. Talk to me when you get an interview. Talk to me when you get in at certain schools. And I just remember thinking like, wow, business school is really rough. Like people don't want to help you or like don't have time to even like lend 5 minutes. And I remember Wharton, exactly like Elizabeth was saying before, the rate of just people responding to me who were 10 years out and were also super busy, but were just willing to talk to an applicant. I didn't even know if I was going to go to business school, definitely not whether I was going to go to Wharton or not. And that made all the difference. And I remember for me, my moment when I knew, I'll never forget it, but the day that the round one announcements came out, the admissions director called me and he's like, you're in. I don't remember really what he said, but then at the end, he told me what you wrote in your essay about wanting to change representation and entertainment and media. And I was like, you remember that? What are you talking about? Like, I just remember thinking in all these applicants, all these people you see, the fact that people looking at your applications, the people who are part of the school, they're humans. And sometimes you forget about that in this process when you're caught up in GMAT scores and all of those things. And every part of the Wharton experience felt human to me, visiting it, talking to alumni, going through the process, even the essay questions and the application you're putting forth. And I just wanted to go to school that considered me a human being and that I'm a full person and I had a full life before this and I'll have a full life after this. And that to me made all the difference in why I chose the program over others for sure.
Talk about a warm and fuzzy feeling. I love that story.
I would definitely encourage everyone to talk with as many people as possible. I think, you know, to Liz's point on, you know, would you want to be friends with these people? Would you hang out with them? Would you feel comfortable reaching out to them 5-10 years from now? It's a large class. You're not going to know everyone. You're not going to meet everyone. But something that ties you all together is that Wharton-ness. And so for me, I think, you know, the reason why I chose there is a beauty in being on campus, but you can also, as I mentioned, when you're reaching out to people, get a small group together. You know, we had welcome weekend and we had our small group dinners, which we love to do. It's a random group of 6 people and you would go to a restaurant. And so that was during welcome weekend, which was after you were admitted. And you would just talk with people and get a sense of what it was like to be on campus. But I think, you know, if you aren't able to be physically in Philly, just, you know, reach out to people. Like everyone has mentioned, people will respond to you. You can reach out to all of us on this call, I'm sure. And I think that's just that openness that is there. It's really beautiful. And I just knew it's, you know, you go through this process, you think you're the smartest person ever because you got into Wharton, you start on your first day and you are immediately humbled. I mean, immediately, because everyone there is just as smart or smarter than you are, and you wouldn't even know it because everyone just is very, there's a lot of humility, and there are people who have, you know, been astronauts or people who will be future founders of companies. And it's just, you don't know it because no one is bragging about it or touting about it. And I think that was something that really drew me to the experience and to why I wanted to enroll in Wharton.
We have about 4 minutes left. So Elise, Tracy, if you have your Warm and fuzzy, would love to hear it. If not, we're going to go to our last question because I do want to get everyone to sign off, I guess, on our last question. Ready for it? Okay. What advice would you offer people like yourself, whether that's a woman in business, a woman changing careers, whatever it is, like Tracy looking to go over to real estate? And what advice would you offer people like yourself who are trying to see themselves at Wharton? Tracy, I'm going to ask you. Oh, Elise, you go first.
Sure. So my advice would be to talk to absolutely everyone you can from every school that you can, because that's really how you're going to get sample variety and understand if you'll see yourself at Wharton. I, as other panelists have said, cold emailed, LinkedIn messaged. People are really excited to talk about their MBA experience. I just graduated and had just a fantastic time and want to scream from the rooftops how like wonderful Wharton is. People who go for an MBA like want to talk about it. So don't be afraid to reach out, especially if it's clear that they've been involved with interviewing admissions, and to get the different perspectives from the different schools. Watch the leaders in your organizations by school and see kind of what traits as a leader they exhibit. I know I always really admired Wharton leaders, but connect with as many people as you can to get a feel for school. And I would say that you'd be surprised how receptive folks are to speaking to you, because ultimately that's how I made my decision, was through those conversations. And also how I think my application really sung was because I just had a lot of different eyes and perspectives to make it that much richer.
Good advice. Tracy.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that and say, not only just reach out to as many and speak with as many people as you can, but also from different walks of life, whether that's career, social, and if they're 5 years out, 1 year out, 20 years out. I think everyone has a slightly different perspective, and that's what I've been learning also the further away my MBA experience gets from me, but I still very fondly look upon those memories, and it seems like yesterday. I just graduated. It's a one in a lifetime experience. There's one shot. You don't repeat it. You don't go back to your MBA again to do another 2 years, and it is just 2 years. And so people do, as Elise had mentioned, look upon it very fondly. They love to talk about their MBA experience, and I think what's almost most interesting is hearing about it through the years. I have friends' parents that have gone to Wharton, and I've spoken to them during the application process, and what it was like then is very different than what it's like now. However, there's still some thematic constant. So I think that's important to gather a different perspective as well.
Nina, I'm going to kick it over to you because you're next to the left on my squares.
Sure. I think everyone has said it, but I also just want to echo it's a very personal journey. I think, looking at this Zoom screen right now, there's people up, down, left, right. They will have different reasons for why they want to go to a certain program. And just remember that, remember why you're going through the process, what you want to get out of it, and don't let anyone sway you. I think, definitely, it's a big financial expense. And for some of you that will definitely pay off much quicker than others. And so I think that could be a consideration. It could be a consideration if you have a family and you need to relocate them. There's so many different reasons for why people pick the schools they do, and don't let anyone, think you're making the wrong decision. You know what's best for you.
Thanks, Janina. Liz, you're next, and then Jazz, you're going to wrap it all up for me.
I echo the comments about reaching out and getting different perspectives. One last thing that, in retrospect, as I look back, was really helpful for me was keeping an open mind. I think I went into the process and even the experience sort of with a set of things that I thought I should do because other people told me, or that's sort of what I assumed. And I got to campus and I tried so many different things that I A, didn't know about, or B, wouldn't have thought about. or I was scared of. And I feel like that was just as valuable of experience as the friendships I made, you know, the experience. It was just that personal growth. And so just keep that in mind as you go through this process, because, you know, the 2 years is, to at least this point, like, it's so special. And even though I'm 2 years out, like, you can tell, like, I can spend hours and hours telling you about how because it was just as much a personal growth story as it was, you know, career and all that other stuff. And so just keeping an open mind as you go through the process, trying different things, trying new things, trying things that you might have said no to or been scared about. That was a really great part of, you know, the decision to go to business school, but also the experience.
Liz, Jazz, last but certainly not least.
Yes, I would say I definitely echo talking to people at different life stages of their Wharton journey. So who are 10 years out have such unique perspective that's so valuable. People who are current students. I actually didn't do enough of this, but talk to first years. First years are in it. And it's very different talking to second years who came back from their internships and they're all shiny and great, or alumni. Talk to people who are in their first year, talk about how they're transitioning, talk about academics. And then the second thing I would say is getting an understanding of your priorities. So things will change. You're going to get exposure to so many different things. But before I came to business school, I was very clear about my priorities and how they change and calibrate at different times. So first semester, it was all about getting a job as quickly as possible. Second semester, it was all about traveling the world. Then second year was all about social, etc. And it's really hard to do everything at once. It's almost impossible to. But since I had those priorities, I was able to, like, get all my people on board, get my husband, back then fiance, on board, get everyone on board with what I was trying to accomplish. And it made business school much more manageable.
On cue, my girls are barking. Thank you. Sorry. Adding a lovely spin to all this, a good strong woman. Apologies, trying to get her downstairs. My partner is trying to make sure she's quiet. On that note, I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for having grace while my dog was just barking. As you can see, we're surrounded by 5 amazing women, and I just want to thank you all for taking the time out of your days and nights and careers and everything to talk about Wharton. Everyone on here can see how special of a place it is, and we hope you were able to see yourself here. And if you're hesitating, don't hesitate, definitely apply. Just so everyone knows, this is being recorded, so it will be sent out to everyone who registered and attended, so you can rewatch it. It'll also be posted on the website. If you have questions about applications or you want to talk to admissions fellow, Jen put the admissions fellow website in the chat. I'll put it in here again, so please don't hesitate to reach out. They're an amazing resource about experiences. We also have a ton of upcoming webinars, so please tune in specifically about app tips. So all your questions, if they didn't get answered, can get answered that way. Thank you again to all our panelists, and stay healthy and safe, and we will talk to everyone soon. Have a great rest of your week.